it's important that we have perspective on everything, because from the proper perspective, everything makes sense. And the more things make sense, the more empowered people are, and the more able they are to make empowering decisions or choices in their life. So, in 1912, the United States of America, the people who were in charge of America, who had more money than the federal government did, the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, banded together, and they established a medical monopoly in the United States through somebody called Abraham Flexner. Flexner went around the country. Now, at this time, in the early 1900s, there were chiropractic medical schools, naturopathic medical schools, naturopathic clinics, homeopathic clinics, MD clinics. It was, there was, in fact, a free medical market. But the Carnegies and the Rockefellers were not okay with that. They wanted to corner the market on medicine, so they sent this guy named Abraham Flexner around the country. This was even before the interstate highway, right? Took him a couple of years. He went all around the United States and did an inventory of all of the schools of medicine. And he brought back his list, which was collectively referred to as the Flexner Report, to the Carnegies. And the Carnegies used that to encourage Congress, and you know, there was money that passed hands as well, to make the medical schools that practiced pharmaceutical medicine, MD-directed medicine, the only legitimate medical schools in the country, and they sold that to the American people as all of the other medical schools were practicing substandard, dangerous quack medicine, which was a lie, but it stuck because it was the Carnegies and the Rockefellers who were promoting this, and, you know, they had more money than God. So in 1912, through the agency of the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, Congress granted the American Medical Association exclusive control over who could and who couldn't practice medicine. And they effectively kicked everybody else off of the bus of medicine, firmly ensconcing the MDs into first place. And they've maintained their position at the top, and this was in 1912, by the way. They've maintained their position at the top through the massive amounts of money and political persuasion that the pharmaceutical industry brings to the table. So since 1912, we haven't had a free medical market here, and it started in the United States, and then it trickled out to the rest of the world. It's interesting to know that the only thing that can legally treat a disease in the United States, believe it or not, is a drug. And the Food and Drug Administration is in control of what's considered a drug. And in order to make something a drug, it has to go through about $60 million of research and development. So they effectively blocked everybody except the pharmaceutical industry from bringing anything to the table that had a positive medical effect on the body. So they raised the bar so high that they completely eliminated all the competition. And not many people are aware of that, but that's exactly what happened. And, you know, don't get me wrong. It's not the drug, it's how it's used, and we need to talk about that in a minute. But, you know, thank God for insulin, thank God for lidocaine, thank God for general anesthesia and the sterile technique. But in the United States of America, since the only type of medicine that we've had access to is MD-directed allopathic pharmaceutical centrist medicine, the leading cause of death is medical treatments. The leading cause of bankruptcy is medical treatments. And while we have been under the exclusive tutelage of the MDs and the pharmaceutical industry, life expectancy is getting shorter and chronic disease is getting worse. Autism is skyrocketing. Alzheimer's is skyrocketing. If you want to really be upset about something, check out the autism and Alzheimer's statistics from cradle to grave. All chronic diseases are escalating. They're all getting worse, and again, life expectancy getting shorter, and the leading cause of bankruptcy, medical treatments, for goodness sakes. The only reason that this type of, you know, really mediocre results, mediocre outcomes can happen is inside of a monopoly, a self-policing, self-regulating monopoly. And most of the people that work for the Food and Drug Administration, after they retire from public service, they go to work for the pharmaceutical industries whom they were regulating while they were working for the government. It's a revolving door, and it should be illegal, but it's not, because the pharmaceutical industry owns the world. And it might be interesting for people to understand, in many states in the United States, naturopathic doctors can prescribe drugs. So this is not an anti-drug agenda. This is an anti-medical monopoly agenda, because your medical doctor, and it doesn't matter if they're in the U.S. or if they're in Australia, if they're in New Zealand, if they're in any place in the world, if somebody has an MD after their name, they have not been trained in medicine. Nobody is trained in medicine. Medicine is a big umbrella underneath which many different disciplines hang. But because of the pharmaceutical industry's influence on everything over the last 100 years, people automatically have been socialized to believe that medicine equals what MDs do. And your medical doctor may be the nicest person God ever created, but they don't practice medicine. They practice allopathic medicine. I practice naturopathic medicine. There's homeopathic medicine, chiropractic medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and botanical medicine, and a handful of others. And all of these different medical disciplines are good for certain conditions and bad for others. The wheelhouse, by the way, of MD-directed allopathic medicine is trauma care, surgery when it absolutely is necessary, the complications of childbirth, and dentistry. I mean, that's what they're good for. That's their wheelhouse. But for everything else, their methodology is old-fashioned, outdated, and inconsistent with the reality of the human experience. The medical doctors have thrown the baby out with the bathwater in their understanding of the physiology of the body. They bring to the table an old-fashioned juvenile mindset, which, quite frankly, is laughable from a greater perspective. But because of cognitive dissonance and the whole reality by consensus thing, when 10 medical doctors get together and tell you that something is so, well, it's so, even if it isn't so. And, you know, the halls of conventional MD-directed medicine are littered with the discarded remains of outdated therapeutics, which in their day were all the rage, like bloodletting, you know, large doses of mercury, large doses of calomel, relieve the body of the humors. That's how George Washington was killed, because they bled him to death, because that was the accepted medical treatment at the time. And we look back at that now and we laugh at it. But I'm telling you, the stripes on that tiger haven't changed. And just a close approximation and understanding and overview of what's happened here with all of the coronavirus misdirection and nonsense should give people pause. But I am here to tell you that all of the misdirection and all of the lies and all of the nonsense and all of the deaths and hardship that were engendered by the whole coronavirus thing, plus the ridiculous treatments that were brought to the table for people who had what was referred to as COVID-19, that's the tip of the iceberg. Your medical doctor may be the nicest person that God ever created, but your medical doctor does not know what's best for you. Your medical doctor only knows what they've been trained in, and what they've been trained in is an outdated, archaic, incorrect understanding of how the human body works. Fire your medical doctor now and figure out what to do with holistic medicine in order to make yourself better. Go to my website as a first step and bring yourself up to speed immediately.